Donald Trump would. Well, look, this happens, Martha. When I was an investigative reporter back in the day, one of the most explosive documents I've ever seen came into the office through the mail. We never knew where it came from. It took a little work to verify that it was a legitimate document, which we succeeded in doing. That was to some people who were alive then, that was the famous Dita Beard ITT scandal, which is based on this memo that suggested all kinds of hanky-panky. But it arrived in the mail, and we didn't go around telling people that at the time, but that's how we got it. So this kind of thing does happen, and if you're the kind of person that's into the leaking business, David Johnson, longtime investigative reporter, might be the very person you'd leak it to. So I find that plausible. And his comment that it's possible Trump leaked it suggests that the truth is he doesn't know where it came from. Yeah.
In terms of the broader potential scandal that was suggested in their conversation and really based on nothing. What we are not seeing here is the source of this income, the Turkish hotel, all of these other ties that they, sort of talked about in breathless tones, but that they've got nothing in terms of these documents to back up.
Yeah, they only got 2 pages of the tax return, and obviously if there's any Turkish hotel income in there, it isn't reflected here. I mean, I think that's just out-and-out conjecture. Out-and-out speculation, out-and-out guesswork, which is perfectly permissible on an opinion show. But at the same time, she's claiming a great scoop and talking about how proud she is of having broken the story. Well, she broke the story, and one might argue that while she broke the story, she broke a lot of wind at the time.
All right. So in terms of the other stuff that's going on that we talked about at the very top of the show here, we're about to hear from President Trump about 30 minutes from now, we expect. And he's under a bit of pressure on this health care deal. He's got sort of being tugged in both directions. How do you think this is going to go, Britt?
Well, I think it's, we're nearer the beginning than the end of this process, and my thought would be that we have a long way to go. The bill, if they can get this bill as it now is shaping up through the House, which is not at all clear they can, but they've got at least some chance of that, it's not going to fly in the Senate. The Senate will have to make adjustments to it, and then, even if that happens, they're going to have to work out a compromise between the House and Senate versions and then send that version, that final compromise version, back to both houses. Now, I've seen in the past, back in the days when legislators were still legislating, back in the 70s and 80s when I was covering Congress, I've seen this happen many, many times. I mean, I remember watching bills being amended on the House floor to where you thought, well, now the members have got it just where they want it, and then it goes down. And then they have to go back to the drawing board. So we got a long way to go here. This is not a pretty process. Legislating never is. You've heard the old cliche about, you don't want to watch people make bills, you don't want to watch them make sausage either, for some of the same reasons. So they got a long way to go here. This is going to be tough. There are budgetary reasons and policy reasons why they need to get this thing out of the way, despite the fact that the public doesn't consider it a priority, because a lot of other things hinge on it, their ability to do tax reform and the rest of it. So there's reason for this, but it's tough.
All right. Britt, thank you. Great to see you as always.
You bet, Martha.
So President Trump is responding to that MSNBC report, telling our own Tucker Carlson exclusively that publishing his tax returns violates the law.
I have no idea where they got it, but it's illegal, and you're not supposed to have it, and it's not supposed to be leaked. And it's certainly not an embarrassing tax return at all, but it's an illegal thing. They've been doing it. They've done it before, and I think it's a disgrace.
Jonathan Turley, professor at the George Washington University School of Law, joins us now. Jonathan, good to see you tonight.
Good to see you.
Is he right about that?
Oh, he is right. It is illegal, and a reporter can be charged with the crime of publishing a tax return. There's no exemption under the law, but what they have is a First Amendment defense, and that defense has been successful in the past. The famous Pentagon Papers dealt with an alleged crime of the media having that information. But courts tend to try to err on the side of a free press, and I think that's the correct thing to do. So it's unlikely that MSNBC would be charged with a crime unless they facilitated the removal of the return or the effective theft of the return.
Yeah. In terms of what is on the return, what strikes me is that there's never been a suggestion that President Trump cheated, didn't pay anything. I mean, there's never even been that hint of suggestion. So there's all this judgment in their tone about the amount of money that he made, where it might have come from. Is it enough, compared to how much he said he made? The basic bottom line with the IRS is, you don't cross that line. Either it's legal or illegal. And it appears that that's not part of the conversation. So I'm not really quite sure what they're so up in arms about.
Well, I was watching like many people, and it was a rather curious leak because you were left with this Mark Anthony moment of not bearing Trump but praising him in terms of paying taxes. And I don't think that's what perhaps the leaker wanted.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't what the buildup suggested. There's nothing in the tax return that is particularly noteworthy. He paid a higher tax rate than some people might have guessed. He took what were accepted deductions at that time. He's allowed, obviously, to do that. So there's nothing there that would support some of these allegations. That's what makes this whole thing rather curious, of why someone would release a tax form that seems to support Trump.
I mean, when you look at the comparisons of what, President Obama paid, for example, you got to wonder if President Trump looks at that and goes, gee, I should have had a different tax attorney. I'm obviously doing something wrong. One last question for you. This Hawaii judge has made, and there are the numbers that people can see at home, which are pretty incredible. This Hawaii judge tonight, we're waiting for the second version of the extreme vetting bill that the president wants to uphold, executive order rather. And the feeling is that this Hawaii judge has now put in place basically something that's going to be nationwide in terms of banning this thing on the second round. What do you make of it? What does it look like to you?
Well, the judge can impose a national ban. There's no question about that. It's similar to what occurred in Washington State. The word is that it seems to be based on the Establishment Clause dealing with religion, which I frankly just don't see how that could be sustained. It's not that it's not a good faith position or there's not good faith arguments. I just don't see the case law supporting that in the long run. But we'll have to see. And ultimately, that could go to a court with a brand new justice on it named Gorsuch.
Could be. And his process gets underway on Monday. Jonathan Turley, thank you so much. Good to see you tonight.
Thanks.
So tonight at 9, don't miss Tucker Carlson's interview with President Trump. The exclusive one-on-one covers everything from health care to wiretapping allegations, much, much more. We've seen a little bit of it, and we all look forward to seeing the rest of it. 9 o'clock tonight, the president sits down with Tucker Carlson. So we are just moments away from President Trump set to take the stage in Tennessee. He will deliver remarks on repealing and replacing Obamacare, quite possibly the most important speech for the president since his joint address to Congress. We'll take you there when he arrives and bring you that live. Mr. Trump's speech comes as back in Washington, big questions linger over the FBI's potential investigations involving Russia and the campaign. Senator Lindsey Graham joins us. He's demanding answers. He'll be here next. Says that the answers are just not coming quickly enough for him. Republican Lindsey Graham announcing today that if he doesn't get information from the FBI about Mr. Trump's wiretapping claims, and soon, he will subpoena to get it. Senator Graham joins us in moments, but first our chief intelligence correspondent Catherine Herridge takes us through the latest on these efforts to get to the bottom of this whole thing.
Well, thank you, Martha. Late today, Fox News confirmed at least 2 senior senators, Democrat Dianne Feinstein and Republican Chuck Grassley, whose committee has direct oversight for the FBI, met with Director Comey in a closed meeting and afterward offered nothing to reporters.
This briefing was all on sensitive matters and highly classified, and it's really not anything that we can answer any questions about.
This comes as the House Intelligence Committee leadership said they have seen nothing that backs up the president's allegations.
To date, I've seen no evidence that supports the claim that President Trump made that his predecessor had wiretapped he and his associates at Trump Tower.
That evidence still remains the same, that we don't have any evidence that that took place.
But tonight the president suggested he would be vindicated in an interview with Fox's Tucker Carlson.
But wiretap covers a lot of different things. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks.
Incidental collection comes when a foreign target like the Russian ambassador is tracked, and in the process the phone calls and text messages of an American citizen are picked up. That's how former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn's communications were captured, and the Republican chairman wants to know if there are other Americans.
What I remain concerned about is whether or not there is additional incidental collection that we are not aware of, and then if any of that information was put into any types of intelligence reports, and then whether or not additional names were unmasked.
The Democrats want more information about Roger Stone, a political advisor associated with the Trump campaign, who confirmed, then downplayed contact with Julian Assange, the head of WikiLeaks, as well as Guccifer 2.0, the hacking entity that spilled damaging emails from the DNC. Martha.
Catherine, thank you very much. Joining me now, the senator demanding answers from the FBI Director Comey, Republican Lindsey Graham. Senator Graham, good to see you tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. Doesn't all that give you a headache?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there. I want to start with the interesting comment by President Trump in the interview that Tucker Carlson did with him. He said, you're going to see some interesting information coming out over the next couple of weeks on all this. Any idea what he's talking about?
Absolutely not. But here's what I think we owe the country. Was there a warrant issued by a judge anywhere in America allowing the Obama administration or anyone else to do surveillance on the Trump campaign? I've seen no evidence that a warrant was sought, that one was issued against the Trump campaign. Director of National Intelligence Clapper said 2 weeks ago he saw no evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians. I don't want to hear it from a politician. I want the FBI director to answer a very straightforward question. Did you seek a warrant? Did you get a warrant?
It may be that there was no warrant and that the case exists, as Devin Nunes suggested, that these intercepts that pick up foreign entities who we have the right to surveil their phone conversations, and that is what is actually the meat of the matter here. Do you think that's where this is headed?
It could be, but don't you want to know if the Obama administration had surveillance on the Trump campaign? I do. The President Trump has suggested that may have happened. The easy way to find that out is to do that legally. In America, you have to have a warrant, either a FISA warrant or a criminal warrant, and if no warrant exists, you can say with confidence that there was no effort to surveil the Trump campaign in a lawful manner.
I hear what you're saying, but the indications, and as you point out, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
But there's something underlying all this that the president seems to be hinting at to some extent. And we hear all of this about deep state, about intelligence agencies who perhaps are holdovers from the Obama administration who wanted to make this candidate look bad during the election. Is that where this is headed?
All I can tell you is that the Russians interfered in the 2016 elections. They hacked into the DNC and Podesta's emails. They gave it to WikiLeaks to try to undermine our elections. I don't believe they changed the outcome. President Trump won fair and square. I want to punish the Russians. But here's what I want to find out. Was there any effort by our government to surveil the Trump campaign? I don't know of any evidence. And here's another question. Is there an ongoing criminal investigation of the Trump campaign in terms of any potential ties to Russia? I haven't seen any evidence at all of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, and there may be no there, and I'd like to get to the bottom of it.
You and the rest of the American people want to know whether or not there's any there, and either deal with it or move on. That's pretty much where we're at right now, and I know you're getting frustrated with it as well. You spoke to the president a couple days ago for 45 minutes, you said?
Yeah, probably half an hour. It was a great conversation.
About what?
We talked about health care. We talked about, the way forward on health care. We talked about the budget. He has been great on the military. We talked about the military. He's been a godsend, as far as I'm concerned, for the men and women in uniform. He wants to rebuild the military. We're trying to pass a health care bill that is better than Obamacare. You got to do it with a Republican on the bus.
He's going to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, here's what I told him. I said, Mr. President, you're the president of all of us. If you think that the Republican bill will not get us to where we need to go, say no. Let Obamacare collapse, and it will. There were 5 providers in South Carolina in 2014. We're down to 1. That 1 is hanging by a thread, 27% increase in premiums. Let it collapse, then replace it. Fix their mess rather than having a Republican bill that would replace Obamacare, in my view, may not get us to where we want to go.
Well, we're moments away from either getting, I think, a full-throated backing of Paul Ryan's GOP version, or maybe saying we're going to start over and keep working on this thing. Senator Graham, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So we're watching Nashville on the right-hand side of your screen. Here now with a take on all of this. Mark Thiessen served as chief speechwriter to President George W. Bush. Julie Roginski is a Democratic strategist. Both are Fox News contributors. Welcome to both of you. Good to have you here.
Great to see you
tonight. So Lindsey Graham's getting impatient with this whole thing. He wants to know, Mark, if there was a warrant. And, you know, there was a suggestion that over the summer there was a request for some FISA surveillance that was shot down. What do you know about this, and what do you think we're going to find out?
I don't know what we're going to find out. You know, in your lead into that story about Rachel Maddow's big scoop, there was a reference to Al Capone's vault, that when you open it up, there's nothing there. It may be that this is Al Capone's vault as well. But also keep in mind there are two accusations out here.
Right.
There's one, Trump's accusation that Obama wiretapped Trump Tower, and two, an accusation made by the Democrats that Trump colluded with Russia. There may be nothing to either one of those. It may be something entirely different. The FBI is in charge of counter-espionage, so they are in charge of counterintelligence. It may be that there are some investigations going on that Director Comey does not want to reveal publicly or acknowledge publicly that have nothing to do with either of those charges, but have to do with Russian spying. It's entirely possible, for example, that Russia was spying on the Trump campaign, and that some people had contact with the Russians in that sense. We just don't know. But the reality is that if you look at the tenor of the Senator Feinstein coming out of that meeting, she was very serious. And
yes,
she said, this is very serious stuff, and we can't talk about it. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Julie, that the White House doubled down on this twice in the past day. Sean Spicer in the press briefing said that the president would be vindicated on his claim that there was wiretapping. He says it's, you know, in quotes, and that means surveillance in the broader sense. And then just now in the interview with Tucker Carlson, which everybody will see the rest of later tonight, the president said, just wait a couple weeks. You're going to learn some things about all of this that you don't know right now.
Well, you know, nobody forced the president to send out that tweet. Nobody held a gun to his head. He sent out that tweet, and now that he sent out that tweet, the onus is upon him and upon the White House to provide some evidence. It's not on, the onus is not on the Justice Department, as the president now seems to indicate. It's not on anybody else. It's certainly not on Director Comey. The president made a very serious allegation. It is a crucially serious allegation. He accused his predecessor of breaking the law and wiretapping him. And if that's the case, the onus is on him to provide that evidence.
Yeah, but the onus isn't on him to do the investigation. I mean, the FBI is doing the investigation, and Congress is doing their own investigation.
The onus is on him because he clearly made the argument. So having made that argument, having made the statement, he has to back it up. There's no there's an investigation that's ongoing. Why would he talk about it?
I mean, he's not trying to make it go away. He didn't answer Tucker's question, Mark, by saying, you know, well, I didn't really mean that, or, you know, I was talking about what happened with Mike Flynn, or anything like that. He did double down on it. Mark?
He did, but I mean, also Sean Spicer said that he never asked the FBI whether it's true or not. So, you know, he's the power of the presidency. He could ask the FBI to tell him, and they would answer him. But it's also a very serious accusation, Julie, to say that the president's campaign colluded with Russia, which is also unsubstantiated. Which the DNI has said there's no evidence of that, and it's really where's the evidence of that? There's tons of stories going on, and Democrats suggesting that this happened with absolutely zero evidence. When you accusing somebody of colluding with the Kremlin without no evidence has a name. It's called McCarthyism. And at least Joe McCarthy was right. There were Russian spies in the State Department. There's no evidence whatsoever, and yet these charges are made willy-nilly. So live by the same words that you're accused. If you want to say that it's on Donald Trump to prove this, it's on the Democrats to prove that there was some sort of collusion.
Well, that's why I fully agree with everything Lindsey Graham said. He's absolutely right about this. We need to find out from Director Comey or elsewhere as to exactly what's going on. This has been going on since the summer, as you recall. It predates the election, and it's about time that we all get to the bottom of exactly what the FBI knows. You're right, there may be a counterterrorism or counter-espionage, operation being run he's not capable of talking about. But surely, so many questions have been asked. Director Comey has not been shy previously about answering some questions that may not have even been asked, as he did during the course of the election.
Well, he doesn't have to comment on an ongoing investigation, and they have the closed-door discussion. So we'll see where it goes. Julie, thank you. Mark, thank you. Good to see you both. So still ahead here tonight, we're now just moments away from President Trump speaking in Nashville, Tennessee. So where is he on the Ryan plan to scrap and replace Obamacare? We are about to hear it from the president himself. Congressman Eric Swalwell and Adam Kinzinger standing by on this battle that is going on and playing out in Washington tonight. Plus, Fox News political contributor Karl Rove joins us with a look at what he believes the president must do tonight in the face of some sliding approval numbers.
Education is the civil rights issue of our time. And it's why I've asked Congress to support a school choice bill.
115.
Breaking tonight, this is a live look at the Nashville Municipal Auditorium where President Trump is expected to speak in just moments. We're told that he is in the building, and we're going to take you there live as soon as it's time. That's the Gatlin brothers on the stage. We just saw Bob Corker a moment ago, the senator from Tennessee. So some 700 miles away on Capitol Hill, some Republicans from their party's more conservative wing, like Arizona Congressman Trent Franks, now changing their messaging on the stalled health care bill, shifting blame from leadership in their own party to the Democrats. Watch this.
The Democrats have a stranglehold on the entire nation. And that means, through reconciliation, we have to put this bill through the Byrd Rule. And the Byrd Rule neither allows a full repeal nor a full replace. And that's our challenge. The process has been driven by a Senate rule rather than the best interest of the country.
So here now, Democratic California Congressman Eric Swalwell. Good to have you here tonight, sir.
Thanks for having me, Martha.
So you hear from Trent Franks, and we also are hearing essentially that there's some in the GOP who believe that the best thing to do would be to back off, to let this thing fail. You got a lot of states where there's only one provider at this point, and sort of put it around your necks, essentially.
Well, Martha, what I care about and what I think a lot of my colleagues care about is making sure that people have access to a doctor, that it's affordable and it's of the highest quality. Obamacare certainly does that, and if Republicans want to work with us to improve it, I think we're ready to do that.
I don't know how you can argue that. There's so many people who lost their doctor under this plan. I know many of them personally. I'm sure you do too.
And I know a lot of people who were never able to get a doctor before because they had breast cancer or Alzheimer and they had a doctor for the first time in their life. It's not perfect. No bill ever in the history of Congress has been. So let's improve it. Let's not throw 24 million people on the streets without health insurance.
So what are Democrats going to do? What will you guys do if the president, we're about to sort of hear, we're going to be listening very carefully to his tone, because either he's going to get up there and say, it's true, Paul Ryan and I are hand in hand on this, I want all Republicans to get behind it, or he's going to suggest that perhaps it's time to back off and sort of let you guys be left with it.
Well, he should negotiate with the Democrats. Martha, this is the president who put himself out there as the great negotiator, the first businessman president.
True.
And we're 50 days in, and he hasn't negotiated anything. So why don't you work with the Democrats and have a bipartisan improvement to the Affordable Care Act?
So, what are you willing to change? What can go?
Yeah, well, what I'm concerned about is there are parts of the country where there's not enough competition, and you're seeing premiums go up there. And so putting the risk corridors into place, which House Democrats had in our original version of the Affordable Care Act, I think that would bring more competition in. But come talk to us, work with us, and make sure that no one loses coverage.
I mean, it seems a bit of a long shot. Chuck Schumer did an interview tonight with Bret Baier. Infrastructure is an area that they're willing to talk about, but this is too potent, perhaps. It's too tempting to sort of hang this on the GOP. The numbers that you saw from the CBO, use those in an electoral environment in November. Is that an opportunity that Democrats will pass up?
Well, remember, Martha, the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, this is the Republicans' Congressional Budget Office. So if they don't like the numbers, they're responsible for the person that they put in there. Again, for us, we just want everyone to be able to see a doctor. We don't want it to break the bank when they do, and we want it to be of good quality. So if we can improve what we have now, come work with us. We're ready.
All right. Eric Swalwell, thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha.
Good to have you here tonight. So some have speculated that Republicans are fighting a losing battle and been left to wonder if health care is on the Hill. Is the GOP willing to sort of die on this one? Are they willing to go down with this ship, so to speak? Here now, Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Good to have you here tonight, Congressman.
Thanks.
Welcome to
Good
you.
To be here. Thanks.
We're waiting for the president to come out any moment now, as we understand. Which side are you on? You support Paul Ryan's version of this, and do you think that that's going to survive?
Yeah, I think it will. There'll be maybe some tweaks and changes, and I think we're always open to negotiating stuff like that. That's really important when you try to figure out in an imperfect process like legislating, how do we get to the final product. But listening to your prior guest, who's a friend of mine, talking about, well, we're willing to work with the president. Well, when you created Obamacare, you weren't willing to work with us in the first place, and so now it's time that we come in and fix it and bring competition, lower people's premiums, give them an option. I mean, half of the counties in my district, the 16th of Illinois, only have one option for health care, and in many cases, it's just like writing insurance on a piece of paper and handing it to somebody because they got to spend 30 grand before they even see their first benefit from having it. So we need to fix this, and we're going to do our best to get there.
So what do you say to your colleagues who are just not on board? They're saying, look, this is way too expensive. It's just another version of Obamacare. It hurts senior citizens. It basically, gives money back to the rich who were taxed to cover the poor in this country, and that's going to go away. So that's going to hurt poor people who were covered by this. They don't like this bill at all.
Well, so look, reform is very difficult. This is a very tough thing to do, and that's why it's hard to reform, and it almost never happens because, ultimately somebody's going to come out and say somebody's losing something. We repeal $900 billion of taxes. That's on all the American people, and it still shows almost a $400 billion savings to a deficit and a debt that is absolutely out of control while increasing competition. So, yeah, this is difficult. And again, I have friends that say, well, this isn't just repeal. We need to just repeal. Well, the problem there is you think the CBO score that came out is bad, have no replacement plan, and that's going to be even worse. And then there are some that say, some other things. Let's all come together, figure out how to make this better, and actually pass and actually get signed into law. That's an art out here, and that's an art we have to figure out.
Good luck. Thank you very much, Congressman Kinzinger. Always good to see you.
You bet.
So Nashville, Tennessee, lots of excitement in the arena there as they wait for President Trump. And after he does this speech, he's going to sit down with Tucker Carlson after that, 9 o'clock tonight. Basically, the two big themes here are health care and also school choice, which is a huge issue across this country, as a lot of people want to provide that option for their kids. Fox News contributor Karl Rove, also former senior advisor and deputy chief of staff under President George W. Bush. Good to see you tonight, Karl. Welcome.
Thanks, Martha.
So the president's in a bit of a tough spot. I mean, he's new at this political game, and he certainly did well throughout the course of the primaries and the election. But now he's got to wrangle with his own party on this. What do you think he should do?
Well, I think he's been doing a pretty good job of it, which is to say, I want a bill. I want it to be repeal and replace, and I'm open to ideas that will make the bill better. And then he has put his Secretary of Health and Human Services, Tom Price, out to take the lead. It's sort of like, think about it as he's sort of the scout who is talking to a wide variety of people, finding out where the differences are, where the points of agreements might be, and keeping his boss informed about that so that he can do a good job, do a better job of stepping in to say, okay, let's narrow the differences, let's find some places of agreement, and let's get this done.
In terms of priorities, Karl, we showed before what people care about. Jobs is 33%. That number stays pretty steady through most of political history. That's the thing that matters to most people. The fifth priority is Obamacare. So you've got a lot of people who voted for President Trump, some of them on the poorer end of the spectrum, who say, look, don't take away this health care that I just got. And then you've got those who are business owners who say, look, you promised me you were going to repeal and replace. He's in a tough spot here.
Well, I think he is. I think you're right that the main issue that drove the election and is driving people's perceptions today is the economy. I'm not certain, though, that he is facing an issue because a lot of his, quote, his people are going to lose their health care. I don't think that's accurate. I think what is concerning people is, if you take a look at the poll, the Fox poll, for example, 2 out of every 3 people who oppose the Republican plan think it's taking too much away from people. And
we have that number. I think you can put it up.
Yeah.
67% say that this proposal changes Obamacare too much. And then the other one is Republican plan to replace Obamacare. Do you oppose it? 54% say that they oppose the plan to replace Obamacare. Karl.
Right. Yeah. Well, my point, though, is that while people feel that way, it doesn't really necessarily affect them. This is a country of 330 million people. There are 10 million people roughly who've gotten coverage through Medicaid. Those are, I suspect, not a lot of Trump voters. And then there are 10 million who've gotten coverage through the exchanges. I think people are more concerned about, is this going to somehow discombobulate my health care that I'm getting from my employer, as opposed to, oh, I'm now getting it I'm now getting, I'm one of the 10 million out of 330 million that's getting additional Medicare coverage, or I'm one of the 10 million out of 330 million who's getting my coverage now through the exchanges.
Yeah,
it's more that this is so personal to people, they don't want people to mess with it.
And people want their own doctor. They want their premiums to go down, and they want their deductible to go down. They don't want to have to spend $5,000 to $7,000. That's not having coverage. Most people never get to that point. It's completely all out of pocket. This isn't what they bargained for.
Yeah, and the bill reduced the amount of money that you could save tax-free for your out-of-pocket medical expenses in a health savings account, and reduced the number of things that you could spend it on.
It's a stupid bill. We get back in time. Carl, thank you so much. Stick around. We may come back to Carl as we get ready for this. We're still waiting for the remarks from the president in Tennessee. We're going to bring you in 30. A little bit of a delay, but we do expect it to get underway any moment now. And also today, just hours before the revised travel ban was set to take effect, a federal judge in Hawaii has put it on hold following one of several hearings that was held across the country today on this order. William Lajeunesse live in Honolulu, Hawaii, with the details on this for us tonight. Good evening.
Well, Martha, you had 3 judges today from the eastern shore to the middle of the Pacific considering that travel ban. And just about 1 hour ago, Judge Derek Watson, here a federal judge in Hawaii, an Obama appointee, did approve again a restraining order, saying that if it went into effect, it would cause irreparable harm to the state, which argued that, number one, that it was discriminatory towards Muslims, and secondly, that it would harm Hawaii's tourism, and finally, that it would deny about the 5,000 Muslims living here a right to see their relatives. But I have to tell you, there were multiple legal arguments today, but the one issue that was on trial was undoubtedly Donald Trump himself. And the state even conceded we probably wouldn't be here if another president had proposed an identical policy. And it was campaign rhetoric by Donald Trump, the proposed Muslim ban, the complete shutdown of Muslims coming to the United States, that haunted the courtroom time and again. And in fact, the judge said he was conflicted. What am I supposed to do? Turn a blind eye to this background and these statements? Because context, he said, mattered. And in fact, he said, well, the feds argued, the administration argued, hey, Judge, stay within the 4 corners of the document of the executive order itself. He said he could not. And let me go to the quote. Because a reasonable, objective observer, enlightened by the specific historical context, contemporaneous with public statements made by Donald Trump, and specific sequence of events leading to its issuance, would conclude that the executive order was issued with a purpose to disfavor a particular religion in spite of a stated religiously neutral purpose. Now, the state attorney general argued that was exactly their intent.
That's certainly the impression that we were trying to convey and convince the court to do. And, obviously the record's pretty full of a lot of statements.
So the next step is the government could appeal this again to the Ninth Circuit, which, of course, turned him down the last time. Back to you.
All right, William, thank you very much. So here now to react to all of this, Mercedes Schlapp, Fox News contributor and former spokesperson for President George W. Bush, and Jessica Tarlov, senior director for research at Bustle.com and a Democratic pollster. Welcome to you both. Good to have you here. Jessica, let me start with you. Not a huge surprise. We had inklings that there was going to be pushback to this second round.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we have another so-called judge, as Donald Trump would say, or President Donald Trump would say. But there is no surprise here. We heard these arguments before on round 1, and though the administration did make changes and they removed one country from the list there, it still doesn't quite cut muster, obviously, for some judges. I do think it's interesting that there was discussion of the fact that this was just because it was Donald Trump,
Absolutely.
and we know what his initial intent was. And we heard Rudy Giuliani say, yeah, he called me and said, how do we make a Muslim ban legal? And then we did this. So I have a lot of difficulty with that myself, but I do understand there'll be tremendous pushback here.
But legally, Mercedes, I mean, you have to judge this based on the document, based on the executive order itself.
Right.
People say a lot of stuff in campaigns, and, that may not have been certainly not a politically correct and perhaps offensive to some people's statement that was made, but it is not what is in this order.
Right. Well, and the words obviously mattered to this particular judge who's an Obama appointee. Also, what's interesting, Martha, is that the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, while they didn't reinstate the travel ban, they never really ruled on the discrimination claims, which it brings in, I think, an interesting legal point, because I think that's one of the areas that this particular judge is also trying to focus on. So, I think that it goes back to the merits of it, of the fact that the Constitution grants broad authority in terms of immigration to the president, that the president under this U.S. Code 1182 can decide who enters and who does not come into the United States. And so those are the, when you think about just the merits of the case alone, the fact that the Constitution would be basically supporting the president on this in terms of granting this broad authority, I mean, it does have a stronger ground in terms of its legal merits, but obviously the judge, ruled differently.
But the Constitution also protects freedom of religion, which is part of this argument. And what the judge said there is
no
that
reference to religion in the executive order.
Not in this iteration.
The fact that they admitted that, if it were a different president who had put forward this same claim, this same executive order, they probably wouldn't have responded the same way. That's insane.
I have difficulty with that, and I can't see anyone across the political spectrum not having difficulty with that. I do think that there's a larger discussion here to be had, and I totally understand what Mercedes is saying here, but when we do know the intent behind this, we also know that he just took the countries that were on an Obama list to investigate, essentially, then went this far. And if you really want to keep terrorists...
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jessica.
Martha.
Thanks, Mercedes. Everybody knows we're waiting for this live event. So we are still waiting for Nashville to get underway. The president's speech is about to get started. He was running a little bit late. They're getting people inside. Apparently there was some issue with that, but the presidential seal is now placed on the podium, so that's always a sign that this is going to happen any moment. Let's go to Kristen Fisher, who can give us an update from inside the arena there at the Nashville rally. Hi, Kristen.
Hey, Martha. Well, we've been told that President Trump is inside the building and that this event should get started any moment now. The reason for the delay, as you mentioned, was that there are just so many people outside still trying to get in through security that they want to make sure that they've given everybody a chance who wants to get in to get in. So that's the holdup. Now, tonight, the big focus was supposed to be on health care and, just how much President Trump was going to try to sell this House Republican health care plan. But now that the news that his federal judge in Hawaii has halted his revised travel ban 2.0 that was set to take effect just a few hours from now, a lot of folks are wondering if President Trump is going to bring it up when he speaks here tonight. Now, we asked Press Secretary Sean Spicer about it right as the news was breaking. He was in here. He said he didn't have anything to say because the news was breaking, but that he would check back and get back with us a little bit later. So we expect President Trump to spend the majority of his speech talking about health care, a little bit about school choice as well, since Nashville is a city that is really a hotbed for charter schools, which President Trump, of course, supports. So school choice, health care, and then, of course, possibly this travel ban, which that federal judge just halted. That's the big news here right now, Martha.
All right. Thanks, Kristen. We'll see what this is, if this is a speech or if it's more of a campaign rally. The president was a bit subdued in Michigan this afternoon. He's got a lot on his mind with this health care bill, so we'll see what he brings to the table as he gets ready to come out. Always likes to get back there, to feel the crowd, to get the feedback. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. I will see you later on O'Reilly tonight and back here at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. Have a great night, everybody. Stay tuned. Live from Nashville, straight ahead.